Welcome, everyone. We're here with the Zombie Antidote podcast, and I have Sophia with us today. We are in New York City, and Sophia is an agent in New York City. So she's a real estate agent here, and she actually had the opportunity of being our agent. I guess we had the opportunity of working with her. But I want to turn the mic to her to kind of give us a little bit about herself, and then we'll get rolling today.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here in your beautiful home and penthouse in New York City or Williamsburg. But a little bit about me is I moved a lot growing up. I was born in Dallas, but I moved to Manhattan when I was really young. My parents are really creative, and our first house or apartment in New York City, they combined 3 units, which is super cool.
That's right.
And then, moving back and forth, upstate New York, Texas again, and then back to New York, it's a lot. And moving every time, I mean, every home I've lived in has been built from the ground up or to the studs, got renovated. And when I finally transferred in college to Fordham, it was such a cool network of people because your teachers are who reside in New York. And I was lucky enough to study like law and econ, where my thesis was on air rights and zoning laws. And I was learning about like urban economics, metropolitan city, like economics regarding that, like why New York City's grid is the way it is. And, real estate, I feel always is that money-making side of like city planning.
Yeah.
And if you're passionate about it and if you care about people in your life, it's almost like the product manager of tech, but in real estate. You're connecting with the attorneys, the mortgage brokers, the realtors, the developers. Your hands are in so many different baskets, and I think we'll talk about this moving on, but the roles as real estate agents is not just opening like a door, and using my personal experience of moving, I think has only bettered it. Because if there's any way in hell I can make your life easier, I will do it. Trust me. And being in New York City, where we're the front lines of change right now, we're that next generation. We're getting down and dirty in the streets because we want to energize ourselves and energize the people around us to know that real estate is pretty badass. Like it's an asset. It is tangible. And I think that message is sometimes not given across the table here, like whatever the words are, and that's kind of why I got into what I'm doing, is moving a lot, being in the weeds of seeing houses like being built, and then just genuinely enjoying the people aspect and brokeraging people to something that is tangible and is theirs. It's home. And I joke, because we're both dog lovers, home is where the dog is, man. Like I love that. We're homebodies to an extent. My husband and I just bought ourselves last year, and I think there's a lot of growth happening and change happening. Look at OpenAI, right? Look at TikTok. Look at marketing as a whole. Podcasts. Like there's so much new and up and coming technologies that I think. Something about me is that I'm hungry as can be. And I think we connect on that level in terms of like real estate and life.
Totally.
Because we have family morals. Like that to me, as I'm getting older, is so important.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Something that I love about you that we were given your name as a referral from a friend.
Right.
And like, I'll be honest with when I coach, when I teach, referrals they're good in real estate, but when I coach individuals, I always talk about like that may not be the best source of information. What's really interesting is we met you, we got to know you, and had some other conversations, but it was pretty quick that we knew like we love your energy and we want to work with you. So I'm sure already as those that are watching can see, like Sophia's a big ball energy and we love it.
Yeah.
So something that you mentioned there that I love is that the real estate agent just doesn't open doors.
Yeah.
We met a gentleman by the name of Loy who works for Sirhant.
Mm-hmm.
And it was when we were visiting the penthouse over Central Park. And I just remember like, wow, what is it like to be pretty much the emissary for a $250 million property, right? And I'm like, must be nice, right? But the dude was the most down to earth,
Yeah.
human connection. And he spent, it was after hours, and he spent, I can't even remember, an hour and a half with us, just talking about the history of, you know, the road that it's on, and then the other road that's crossing, and then how the rights are this and that, and then you have the air rights and how they helped with the developer from pre-construction on what's going to happen. So there's so much more involvement that a real estate, an agent, a brokerage, a team can affect the market than just like opening doors.
Absolutely.
So I love that you mentioned that. The first question we have today is kind of getting right to the meat of information in the marketplace. We were talking about this before we kind of jumped on, and I just want to hear your opinion. Like, consumerism and media, right? Like, are all of the buyers, all of the people, and what the media is saying. What's your opinion on that?
Well, what we were chatting about earlier was that, you know, anytime something is coming out, we're all seeing it. You're seeing it in Utah. We're seeing it in New York. But are our markets the same? Are they the same price point? Are they the same deal sizes? The activity is so different. And so that blanketed approach right now is, I think, where this quote unquote misinformation sometimes is coming from.
Okay.
And does that mean it's not accurate? No, it is. If we are looking generally, New York City, yes, is a large state, but New York is a large state. New York City is 4 miles, you know, like it's not that big. It's just the compact.
Yeah, dense.
We have vertical real estate here, but there's a limit to it, right? And I think that supply and demand, and, you know, cities being different, is New York City's supply and demand is going to be high because there's always a limited amount of inventory.
Yeah.
Utah right now, the supply and demand is still relatively high because, again, the inventory is not there.
Yep.
But, you know, in some of these places that we're saying we're down, New York City's price is up.
Yep.
Our inventory is down.
Yep.
Our deal volume, we're getting up there. It's a slow and steady incline. Okay. It's because, you know what? 2020 was weird.
Yep.
Like there were so many unknowns, and that only makes us better.
Yeah. Right.
We're the front lines of change.
Yes.
Like, how cool that is to me.
Yeah.
But 2021, we're up here. That V curve,
it flew.
It flew. People rebounded like no one else. And I was telling everyone, this is not a U curve. We're going to rebound like we did in the financial crisis, like 9/11.
Yep.
New York City's real estate is resilient because it is limited.
Yep.
And that is not getting across. So today we are seeing, like, in the past 30 days, probably over 115 deals over the $4 million mark. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's over 1,000 contracts being signed over the past 30 days. Where we were in 2020, May of 2020 was 158 contracts signed, or the deal volume was 158.
In May of 2020.
May of 2020, okay? Catastrophic.
Yes.
Like, it was an exodus, and I am here sitting in my apartment with my husband in our little studio, or my now husband, and when was I going to meet someone? Right. Because I wasn't allowed.
There wasn't people anywhere, and you didn't go outside.
So virtual came back, and then we saw opportunity. Yeah. The opportunity and realistic folks that have cash or were able to finance and was risk oriented. Yep. They are who came out at top and
got opportunities then, and they're sitting in a good spot now.
We're seeing deal volume in 2021 at, you know, like 1,200s to, what was it, like 2,000 or something, and now we're at like 1,000.
Yeah,
that's
per
pretty
month.
decent, correct? In that past 30 days. Yep. So like where we are is we're steadily inclining, and inventory, it's not like inventory is going up. That too is steadily inclining. And I feel like I'm seeing two different, sorry for touching this. I am seeing two different types of sellers out there. You have like the desperate seller who is, you know, an estate sale. You see foreclosures. You see those who already moved on from that apartment because their family grew or they needed that extra office space. Space is important, right? Yep. But you also see that other seller who's not desperate and who has either 0 mortgage or 2% mortgage or 3% mortgage. And their carrying costs, their operating costs are so minimal or non-existent that they're going to hold, because you know what? There's not 15 other properties coming on. Yep. There's a few. Yeah. But where does yours land in that? And that's going to determine like the length, I guess, of time it's going to sell.
It's going to be on the
market. It takes one person, right?
Yeah, to buy it, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting because we've talked about a little bit in the Utah market is there's a window, and if you understand the conventional loan limit, right, that being below that limit, rates really impact buyers. Yeah. Above that, in Utah, we kind of consider it luxury. And the luxury market is up year over year. It keeps going up because they're not as affected by the rates. Cash is normally involved in those situations. Knowing the pricing of New York, most anything and everything is above conventional limits. And so there's going to be some sort of larger money involved, which is really interesting you say that. Like, how are things doing? And I think one thing I want to call out is when we were talking before we got on was you mentioned prices are up 6% year over year, which is, I never would have thought that. I would have thought, oh, big cities, like maybe there's, you know, maybe it's more stagnant, or in tougher times, like the economy being down right now, there may not be as much movement. But you're like, yeah, there's a supply coming on, but the demand is outpacing that, which is continuing to drive prices. Yeah. That's fascinating.
Does that mean though we're at 2021 levels or 2022 levels? No.
In transaction count.
In transaction count.
Yep.
But as a landlord, I talked about this on the leasing side of the rental side. Now that you're getting $5,000 for your one bed, you gonna go lower than that?
No.
No. You know now that your apartment is worth $5,000, and you know what? They're not like there's a million other $5,000 apartments on the market.
Yep.
So we now have a new norm.
Yep.
That's where we are today.
It's interesting. I mean, I'm going a little bit off script, but out of curiosity, something like COVID scares a lot of people away from the city. Well, you're now, not that COVID's completely gone by any means, but it's much more in a state that we're okay with it. But the question that comes up is like, well, yeah, people left, people also came back, and then you also have the birth of like, you don't have to be tied to an office anymore, and you can go places. I myself, we bought a place here, and we actually have, I'm trying to think, like originally there was 1 or 2 friends here, and now we have maybe 8 or 9 or 10 people that we know from other areas in the country that have moved to the city in the last 12, 18 months. Have you seen, like from your buyer pool, or even renters, have you seen an influx from external coming into the city, or a lot of them are just moving around within? So
this is what I find so interesting, because people choose to live here. And it doesn't matter. You know, the reason why the rental market is still so insane is because at that point of people are choosing to live here. And you know why? Because of the food, because of the atmosphere, because of the ability to walk down the street and having everything at your fingertips. You know, we're not Utah. We can't go 5 minutes out our backyard and like have trees, right? But we are in New York State, and we have Bear Mountain. We have like so many like environmental outdoorsy things that are a jump, hop, and a skip away. Like, yes, it's a train ride an hour, but it exists. But you know what? You don't get the option to like order food at 10 p.m. and have good options. Yeah,
or just walk outside. Like we always joke about that here I like lie in bed in Utah and think about like I crave New York food because you can't get it. You can't get it there. And if you can, it's a 30-minute, it's a 45-minute drive. Here we can walk out of our place and within sub 10-minute walking radius, you have almost anything you could want.
It's amazing.
And it's top notch.
And you know what? Getting around too, I will say, like, I think is a driving factor of where people live is the ability to get around. And depending on what your likes are and dislikes, people that get out of the city more live on the edges a little bit more. Like they live in like on the east side or the west side more, not as central. Because they're wanting to get on the highway. They're wanting to get out on the weekends to go play golf, to go hiking, to go to their weekend house. But you know what? They're still choosing to be here during the week because it gives them life.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
Y'all are here for this energy and it's infectious.
It's totally infectious. I love that. So kind of wrapping back to the beginning is like the influence of media with the people. You made the point of like media being essentially nationwide, and it's like doesn't necessarily mean it's not true, but there definitely is an element of like where's your local information, and it's likely we're not reading about. Or, I mean, I know there's the New York Times, but that's not just like New York City specific news, right? And a lot of people aren't focusing on local outlets. And I'll also say, knowing what I know in Utah, a lot of local outlets also don't analyze or look at things the way that maybe a lot of national brands do. So there's kind of an information gap, I feel. It's just interesting to bring that up.
Well, because we're literally the boots on the ground information. And I think that's where having that umbrella of wherever you're under, like that brokerage, it gives you that genuine back and forth. Like I can see based on like what other people in my wheelhouse are doing. It's one, it's healthy competition, but two, it's also interesting to know that such person is closing 5 deals around these areas and the activities.
You can feel it before it's like even before it hits the media. You know what's happening. You can feel it.
Right. There is some sort of data discrepancy, right? I mean, just because there was 1,000 deals that closed this month, is everything going to be tracked exactly properly on time? And are we going to see that reflect on a graph tomorrow? No.
And it's so interesting because as we're feeling that, we're real time. There's a lot of consumers that are waiting to get information that's like, oh, I now think it's a good time. I mean, how many times did we hear, well, as prices were screaming up, it's like, well, I want to wait till the prices are down. Prices might be down. I know they are in Utah. They're obviously not in the city, but like they're not screaming like they were, right? No. But then the comment is, well, I'm going to wait for rates to come down, right? It's never the right time for certain people.
But it's almost like something my mother said to me is, don't try to plan everything out because there's never a right time.
Right.
You know, have general ideas about things, but if you have such a rigid timeline or like, I'm going to wait for rates to come down, you know what might happen? They might not right now. And then you're going to have to rent. And you know what? There's a lot of other people that are thinking like you because they're maybe scared or they're just wanting to be conservative with their money. But real estate is, again, tangible. There's a history of what's the word? Of appreciation. There is a history of appreciation.
Long term,
over any 10-year time.
Yes.
So look at that and then look at New York City. And you'll see that New York City it's not the average city or average town or whatever. So having that localized data, sure, is super important. But even us as agents, we try to find these outlets too. And it doesn't really exist that much unless you do have that constant like sphere of agents around you and you understanding like the market, the real-time market, not the delayed time market.
Absolutely. And I think that's like, it's interesting you say that because I'm feeling it. I know you and I are very, very transparent and honest and truthful with our clients. And we were even talking about this beforehand of like, we wouldn't sacrifice like trying to hustle a deal through to not have a client be ultimately in the best spot. So that comment you made is like, for people, either investors, if they're actively in the market, or people that aren't as active, that are considering switching primaries or relocating or whatever, it's so important to have a friend or someone you can really trust that's an agent that you can get real, honest information from. Like, to my sincere friends that I love and care about, I tell them legit how it is.
Yeah.
Always. And I do that with any referral that comes in. It's like, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if all agents are that way. And so I know my brand is, your brand I know is, but it's so important to find, like, just to hear you say that, like, to have someone who's close that is real time listening to what's happening on the front lines, because that's where sometimes the biggest opportunities can come up if you wanting to make a move. This kind of leads into another question, is like the SVB news, right? When Silicon Valley Bank had its moment, there was a lot that happened, right? Is a moment like that? I know from a media perspective, everybody panics.
Oh yeah.
I had people texting me. I had a lot going on. What does that do to a market, and does it open up opportunity?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think you have two different people, right? You have those who immediately read those and react negatively.
Yeah.
They're scared. It's clickbait. I mean, it's not. It's real things. Bad things are happening, obviously. Like, we don't want to go through what we did in 08, 09.
Absolutely.
And you know, but we've been having a constant threat of a recession over the past like 2 years.
Yeah.
So what's the point, I guess? I don't know.
Like, we're why are we surprised to see that if that's what we've been expecting to see, right?
Like, it's getting any news. Yes, it did affect, sure, right? We are getting texts, we are getting this.
Yes.
But you know what? Who's talking about it today?
Yeah, it's
kind of over.
It's
you know,
like
there's so many other things being talked
we're
about.
talking about other things already.
But you know what, like, hasn't stopped being talked about is like interest rates, right? Those continuing to go up. And I think that's where the smart person might be fearing it a little bit, or that investor friendly person who doesn't have all the cash, because the cash person, that is the opportunity. They're going to come in and swoop in and get the deal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Totally.
I'm dealing with it right now.
They're waiting for moments like that.
Yes.
Right? Like, I've actually seen that where, and I've even done it with my investors, where it's like an SVB announcement hits. It's like, for those following 7 days, 14 days, it's like, what could we potentially buy? Because all of a sudden there's a seller that panics and they're willing to do something they weren't willing to do 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. What if this gets worse?
Yeah. What if we XYZ, right? And it's interesting because I think it causes, I always use the word, it causes a freeze.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of like just stops and everyone's like, what do we do? Those windows, even though they're small, whenever some type of major news drops, are opportunities.
Yeah.
Now, sure, let's say something more catastrophic went and happened. You could have maybe tried to make a move and then kind of, maybe it went down. Maybe it wasn't the best decision. But the interesting thing about that I think about is, regardless if you're getting it, say it was here and you're getting it here, here, or here, or here, at some point you're going to be returning to normal because it's the news doing this to it. So once we kind of move past it and move on, it's like we stabilize.
Yeah. So
there's opportunity spelled out all the time behind scary information, right? Interesting.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I know we're kind of getting here on time. I've got 2 more questions. Okay. This one is short as possible. Buy or rent in New York City?
I mean, we talked about this. It depends on your situation. Are you qualified?
Yeah.
And that's when you really do reach out to people like me or you, the expert in your market, because we'll help you get there if you're not. Like, you want a 5-year plan? If you don't have one already, let's chat about it.
Yep.
Because, again, real estate is the backbone. Like, that's something tangible. You're going to be able to sell it. You're going to have that cash to put into your next investment. If you can buy, do. But if you can't, have a plan that enables you to have access to that option. It's your option to do it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But
which means you don't necessarily have to, but if you spend the time planning and getting ready, you're in position, right?
Absolutely.
I know you and I are kind of unique in the agent world in the sense of we both actually work with a lot of renters, a lot of tenants. And so you're mentioning this 5-year plan. Do you work with your people that you help place in rentals? Do you work with them on plans to eventually buy?
Well, I mean, that was my strategy all along in the greatest way possible, but work with millennials, right? We're millennials. We were on the track of renting for a few years until we have
Or to
that down
buy.
payment, and
Yep.
then we can build and grow. But
Yep.
with rents being the way they are,
Yep.
I don't want to be paying my landlord's mortgage
Forever.
I want to be paying my own mortgage and then
Totally.
be able to
Yeah.
offload that when I
Yeah.
have my child or 2 child, and then upgrade our home.
Yeah.
And again, going back to like why I'm in real estate, I like doing that stuff.
Yes.
So being a landlord also isn't for everyone.
Right.
Like being an investor isn't for
necessarily
everyone in real.
100%. The part I want to double click on there that you mentioned is this essentially, I do it, I know you do it, and I think it's weird, but I want people listening to really hear this because I think it's actually very important. It's this idea that like I've worked with a client for maybe, I'm trying to think, 18 months, 2
Wow.
years before they've transacted.
Mhm.
And that's not, hey, they were wishy-washy and they didn't know what they wanted to do for 18 months. That's, they weren't in position.
Mhm.
We started from point A, we worked clear through until they finally were in a position to be able to buy. But the cool thing was on those experiences I have, number one, they're near and dear to my heart because I see this journey.
Yeah.
But number two is they have a trusted partner to help them navigate financial decisions,
Yep.
navigate things that's like, I think what I'm getting at here is there's individuals out there that think that, oh, well, if I buy a house or if I'm going to buy a house, it just magically happens.
Yeah.
Or I just have a bunch of money and now I can upgrade. And it's like,
wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? There's but it's for everyone if they put the strategy in and work towards the goal. Right? So, and I know, I mean, Utah's a little bit of a different market, but New York, I would 100% say that's important for everyone because it's not like you can just go out and buy things in New York.
No, there's a process.
Like you could in Utah.
Yeah.
Right? So, no, that's fascinating. Just the journey of us working with people for long periods of time to get into something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this isn't about the next appointment. And we talked about this
and
too.
We
it's
invite
about
that.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's so different from us versus a lot of agents just want that transaction, that sell, that buy. And it's like, we're willing to sit down and be your friend for a long time.
This is forever.
Because we love what we do.
Genuinely.
I love that. Okay. Last question. So I kind of mentioned at the beginning, we'll come full circle here, but we talked about, I mentioned to the audience that you are a big ball of energy. So out of curiosity, how do you maintain that? Motivation, positivity. You're in a big city that probably kicks your teeth in a lot.
A little bit, yeah.
Tell me about it.
I think you are who you surround yourself with. I'm a big component of that. And I think as we've gotten older, as I've gotten older, I mean, my birthday is April and it's a big one and I'm excited. But that Aries energy or that Taurus energy, it's a lot. Yeah. And passion can be interpreted in a few different ways. Mm-hmm. And it can be really positive or it can be really negative. And, maintaining this constant positivity is not easy. And, some days are there really crappy days where you want the world to just like stop for a minute so you can cry in your bathroom without anybody watching.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. But you know what? When I step in front of an apartment or I step in front of a client or if I step in front of a human, I just turn on. And that human connection that COVID has been tough. Like my husband doesn't go to the office anymore. And I'm like, I mean, I never really went to an office every day, but my people are my office, these apartments,
go visit them.
And I love being around energetic, positive people, but I also know that not every day is going to be freaking rainbows and butterflies.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And it took a long time to realize that. And choosing who you spend your time with because your time is the biggest investment in your life.
Yeah. So to summarize on that, so those out there listening, whether you're an agent, whether you're a consumer, right, a buyer, seller, client of ours,
renter,
someone that
landlord,
knows, renter, landlord, what I'm hearing you say there's two areas you hit on about like how do you stay in a high energy space. And number one is really being intentional about who's around you, right? The other one was, and you kind of hinted at this, was like you actually source and draw energy from your job, like what you do.
Yeah.
Like you want to see the people. You're like, hey, people. Now it's not always that case. Sometimes you're a little beat up, and it's not as lit up. But there is, to me, I genuinely feel that when you helped us with our transaction and seeing you do your work, you love to see people succeed, and you love to help them turn a bunch of no's into a yes. And that fuels you. So I think the lesson for people listening is like, what fuels you? What fuels them?
Yeah.
Right?
Find something that you care about of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because that will make you excited when you wake up. You know, I will be very honest. There was a couple weeks ago where I was like, rah, the world sucks. Like, no. And, you know, someone told me, Sophia, you just got to get out there and go get a deal in.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's exactly what I did. Yeah. Because I know being around people is what energizes me. And it doesn't matter if it's someone I just met or someone that's been in my life for 50 years. I'm going to treat that person with the same respect and time. And my mom always told me, enjoy what you're doing, because otherwise it's going to be a chore. So I feel quite lucky that I really just love the people and the brokeraging of people. And seeing apartments are pretty, but I get to meet really cool people.
Yeah. Yeah. No, me and my wife have talked about that. Like for me, it's the humans involved are like the number one motivator for me, because I know what it's like to be stuck or to not be able to progress and to have the assistance and go. So like, I want to be that for people. I want to, you know, get involved and help them on their journey. And it's so fulfilling. So I love that.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Any final comments or anything for those listening?
No, but I just find it so interesting to see what's going on in all these different markets. And, you know, social media is a really cool outlet for that. And you know, there's a reason why we're people. We're not an AI bot. Like you said something earlier, like you can see what's on the market. Yep. There's a reason why people come back to me. There's a reason why people come back to you.
Even though they can see things on the internet.
Right.
They come and engage with you.
They want to engage because you already have a full-time job. Yeah. We're here to make your life easy.
Yep, 100%.
And you know what? Sometimes it's hard and there's some hiccups here and there. And we've all had those fun times, but we're there to mitigate that process and streamline it and do whatever we can, because at the end of the day, we're selling happiness. Yes. Right?
We're selling happiness. Sure. Absolutely. I love that. So I'm going to let you say your last name to the camera, because I can't say it well. But Sophia
Ginchard.
Ginchard.
Yeah.
Okay. Sophia Ginchard. And we are so grateful to have had her. She is currently at the beginning of 2023 here. We're just at the end of Q1. She's got $10 million under contract so far this year. Really so she's crushing it. If you're wanting to see more, just see New York City. Follow her. We're going to make sure she's tagged and we'll collaborate on all this content. But thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This has been awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.